Watching Worldview Tube, a Brannon House television network.
The Tamara Scott Show. Tamara has served as the state director for one of America's largest pro-life, pro-family public policy organizations. In 2007, Tamara was named one of America's top 10 most influential kingmakers by the Religion News Association. Tamara has spent years proclaiming and defending the values of a Christian worldview that is the foundation of our constitutional republic. And now, here is your host, Tamara Scott.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I am Tamara Scott. This is the Tamara Scott Show. We are honored and blessed to be able to have an hour with you every Monday through Friday. I have said it before. I got in this because God called me to it. Brannon House called. And between God and Brannon, you don't say no very often. So I'm honored to get to do it. God called me to it. I don't want to be in it a minute without him in it. So there you go. That's the sincere goal and mission of why I do this show. But I'm honored to get to talk with incredible guests all the time who have impeccable information that you need. There's so many things that we're dealing with across our country right now. So you can get videos of this show, archives of this show, about 5 to 7 days after we do the show live. They're available publicly, and then they go behind the paywall to fund the Worldview Network. So it's Worldview, www.tv.com is how you watch the show live. But worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault is where you can get all the shows when you subscribe. And not only do you get our incredible guests, but every show on the network and Brannon House's incredible library of his guests, his speeches, his documentaries, his writings, his presentations, 36 plus years of that information. So you can get that at worldviewtube.com/vault. Now, Thomas is putting a lot of our shows on YouTube, and the network is allowing that because so much of what we're dealing with is timely, critical, and you need to be able to share it to help alert others without worrying about it going behind the paywall. So they're very kindly allowing us to take certain shows that we ask and put them on that YouTube channel at worldviewtube.tv.com, worldviewtube.tv.com. All right? Now we'll hop right to our guest. Bill Federer is one of those who is no stranger to our viewers at the Tamara Scott Show. And if you get to hear him across the nation on American Minute, you can find him at AmericanMinute.com. But you hear in a 60-second blurb, you hear more information than unfortunately our kids are learning in the classroom, probably a lot of the year or most of the year. He's always got insight, and no matter what the topic is we ask him, he can bring us a historical perspective that helps us understand where we're headed in the future. Should we make certain decisions or not correct certain decisions? So, Bill Federer, thank you for joining me today, and welcome to the Tamara Scott Show. We love having you on the show, any chance we can get from you. And Bill, there's always a variety of topics we can ask you about. And today, I've sent you several emails and texts and headlines. Where would you like to start, sir? What do you think? I mean, there's so much facing us globally. There's so much facing us concerns, corrections that are needed inside our nation. Where would you like to start?
Yeah, well, one of the things that I've been writing on is the Red-Green Alliance, and it is where you have the communists and the Islamists working together against America. And this is on full display in New York with Mandami. He's both a socialist and an Islamist. Now, a couple definitions. Lenin said socialism is a transition phase to communism. So you have capitalism on one side where individuals own property, and communism on the other side where individuals own no property. The government owns it all. And socialism is the transition phase in between. So when you say Democrat socialism, Ayn Rand said it's just the difference between murder and suicide, right? You're either going to have somebody take away your stuff or you're going to voluntarily give it up. But the goal is the same. The goal of socialism is communism, where nobody on the entire planet owns any property. It's all controlled by the deep state globalists, and they decide who gets what, and they weaponize the government against those that challenge them, very apocalyptic in their views. Now, you add to that Islamists, and lo and behold, Islam wants a one world government called a caliphate. And they are specifically anti-Christ. So Surah 572 in the Quran says, if you believe that Jesus is the Son of God, you have committed an unforgivable sin called shirk that condemns you to the fires of hell. You cannot be any more anti-Christ than by saying if you believe in Christ, you go to hell. So if there ever was a religion of anti-Christ, Islam sort of fits the bill. And so they want a one world government called a caliphate under one Muslim leader called a caliph. And so you have this combination of Islamists wanting a one world antichrist government and the communists wanting a one world government, these communist globalists. And they're happy to work together against those that hold Judeo-Christian values, because the Judeo-Christian values can be summed up in one word: individual. That you, as an individual, are equal to every other individual because you're made in the image of the Creator, and this Creator is not a respecter of persons. That's unique in Bible thought. That every other group, there either is no creator, like the communists, so you can't be made in his image, or in Islam, Allah has no image. So you can't be made in his image because Allah has no image. And the concept of equality doesn't exist in Islam. A believing Muslim is more equal than a backslidden Muslim, and a Muslim male is worth more than a Muslim female. Muhammad said that it takes two women to testify in court against one man because a woman's mind is deficient. In Egypt, they have a marriage license. It has one line for man and four lines for the wives. And so they have polygamy. And all the guy has to do to divorce his wife is say, I divorce you 3 times. And she's out the door. No alimony, no custody, nothing. She's gone. And he can replace her with a 9-year-old because Muhammad's youngest wife was 9. But now the Al-Azhar University, which is the top most respected Muslim university in the world, the Al-Azhar University said all you have to do is text your wife 3 times, I divorce you, and she's gone. So it's over. That's it. There's no getting the police or courts or anybody else involved. That's it. It's over. So the women live on a thin ice all the time. In many sects of Islam, the man can discipline his wife. And there's different imams that teach that you can hit her as long as you don't leave a bruise. And there's all these Islamic teachings on disciplining your wife like you would discipline a child. Of course, if she doesn't comply, then you just divorce her and then you put in another one. So these are differences. So both Islam and communism hate Judeo-Christian Western values, which gave birth to the idea of the individual. John F. Kennedy's inaugural address said, the rights of man come not from the generosity of the state, but from the hand of God. And again, this God is not a respecter of persons, which is, in a sense, what Harry S. Truman referred to in his inaugural address, 1949, where he said, we believe all men are created equal because we're created in the image of God. Again, that's not a Hindu belief, because in Hinduism, they use the number 360 million 360 million gods. So pick which one you're in the image of. In atheism, there is no God. And then, of course, in Islam, Allah has no image. And as I mentioned, there's no concept of equality. So the idea of us being equal and having rights from a creator is a Bible idea. And this is the enemy of both the Islamists and the socialist communists. And so it's up to us to defend these rights and values and pass them on to our children. The Proverbs says that it's a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children.
Absolutely. All right, Bill. So when I sent Bill all kinds of videos, I didn't know this is where we're going to head, but I'm thrilled because I don't think we can be teaching about this any too much right now. One of my guests later this week is talking about in the Florida Panhandle. They're building all of these tenant buildings, and they were asking who's possibly going to move into these. And they were told Islamic people, Islamists. And they said, where are you going to get them from? We've closed the border. There are ads being sent to Minnesota, Michigan, New York, for those folks who believe in Islam to come down to the Panhandle and move into these tenant buildings. And they're advertising the fact that Florida has charter schools, so they can use those charter schools, use our Constitution, and find a way to have their own schools, possibly funded by the government. Teach Islam, build their majorities until, Bill, you and I know what happens when they think they have acceptable numbers to take over. They do. I had not heard that. Had you heard about that?
I've heard portions of it. I do know that there is a strategy they've been working all across the country is to find Republican areas and then build high density housing. Statistically, people that live in high density housing have less income, and they tend to vote Democrat in higher percentages. And so it's their way of Greeley, Colorado. I was out there, very historical, strong, independent Republican red area, and they're building these high density housing. A radio host, Kim Munson, has me on often, and she drove me past them, and she explained this is their plan to bring in Democrat voters. Arnold, Missouri. I mean, all these different areas, St. Joseph, Missouri. But as you mentioned in the Panhandle, they want to build high density housing because traditionally those have a higher percentage of Democrat voters. But we do see an overlap between the Democrat agenda and the Islamist agenda. If I can backtrack a little.
Let me ask you to hold on that point because we need to go to break. When we come back, I'll let you pick up on the overlap between Democrat voters, Democrats maybe, and Islam. We'll hold on that. We'll be right back. Bill Federer is my guest, AmericanMinute.com. You're watching the Tamara Scott Show. Stay tuned.
I need to tell you about our Bella Grace. The slender little sachet has the elixir with the collagen, astaxanthin, and cat's claw. In 2022, got an award for helping with cognitive function, and in 2023 in the sports arena for active ingredients, nutrition, and format. But the best is what we hear from so many of you. You have noticed better joint health, improved mobility, less eye strain and fatigue, helping with computer vision syndrome, visual acuity, depth perception, alleviating dry eyes, but also helping with your immunity, your stress management, endurance, less fatigue overall, not just eye fatigue, muscle recovery, mental clarity, focus, and gut health. Then there's the fun list. The firmer, smoother skin texture, fewer fine lines and wrinkles, improved skin elasticity, decreased age spots, more even skin tone, improved skin hydration, reduced oxidative stress, healthier nails, less cellulite, hair health, better sleep. Who wouldn't want any of those? Call them beauty in items if you wish, but who doesn't want to feel a little bit better or more confident when you're going to present in the public square, when you're going to speak at a city council? And who just doesn't want to feel a little healthier? Maybe they're just byproducts of being healthier. More information at tamara.bellagraceglobal.com, tamara.bellagraceglobal.com.
Thanks for staying tuned. I'm talking with Bill Federer from the American Minute, AmericanMinute.com. Bill, before we went to break, you were talking about overlap, I don't know if it was Democrat voters in Islam or how that was working. Take us through it.
Yeah, so when Muhammad was born in 570 AD, 610 AD, he starts his faith. He has a combination of beliefs. There's Zoroastrian beliefs mixed in there with Muslims historically considering Zoroaster a prophet, and they mix in pagan beliefs, Jewish oral traditions. Even Encyclopedia Britannica says the gospel was made known to Muhammad through apocryphal and heretical sources. So Muhammad thought the Trinity was the Father, Mary, and Jesus. And Muhammad was illiterate. He could never read and write. Anyway, he gets confrontational, and the people of Mecca chase him out of town in 622 AD. He goes north to a Jewish city called Medina. They're nice, they're tolerant. They let Muhammad in as the first ever Muslim immigrant. He goes into the minority neighborhoods and he begins to organize a following, a community, like a community organizer. And when his following gets big enough, he pressures the three Jewish clans that control Medina to a treaty. And now Muhammad's a political leader. And then when his followers get chased out of Mecca, he allows them to rob the caravans headed back to Mecca. It's this concept of victimhood. We're the victims of their intolerance, therefore we're justified in attacking them. And this went into the DNA of Islam. Whenever they get aggressive and confrontational and they get chased out, as a result of that, they consider themselves the victim of intolerance of the host country. Therefore, they're justified in attacking. Anyway, Muhammad gets verses from his Allah that he gets a fifth of the booty from robbing caravans. He gets a verse 3350 that says Allah has given them the slave girls as his booty. He tells his men they can have 4 wives plus as many extra women as their right hand possesses, slave wives, concubines, bondwomen, and that they die. They get 72 women in paradise. And so the Meccans send 10,000 soldiers to stop Muhammad and his warriors from robbing caravans. But he digs potholes and trenches all around the city of Medina, which renders the cavalry of the Meccans useless. And so then he bribes some of them at night, they leave, threatens some of them at night, they leave, breaks up the coalition forces, and then it gets freezing cold for a week, and the rest of the Meccans lose heart and retreat. And Muhammad considers this a great victory, that here he is having this immense, powerful force come at him, and they end up leaving. And he considers this a victory, that Allah wants him to be a military leader. And that, by the way, this is sort of interesting because the attitude in Iran, you have this great big power, America, coming, and if they can keep standing, they consider it a victory. Well, Muhammad goes back into the city of Medina, and those 3 Jewish clans that let him in 5 years earlier, when he was just a weak immigrant, he had just chased away anybody that could come to their rescue. And so he picks on their political divisions, and he confiscates the smallest of the 3, their property, and chases them out of town. And the other 2 Jewish clans sort of stand down. Well, I never liked that Jewish clan, that third one, and they were competition for me, and they had it coming to them, sort of like they had Trump derangement syndrome. It's like, I just can't have. And then there's only 2 Jewish tribes. And Muhammad picks on the smaller of the two and confiscates their property, chases them out, and the big Jewish tribe stands down. Well, I never liked them, and they were competition for me, and at least Muhammad's not picking on us, and now there's only one Jewish clan. And Muhammad is taking a bath, and a spirit appears to him, says, how can you rest when all his enemies are in your midst? He says, where? Points at that last Jewish neighborhood. He surrounds them for 25 days, brings them into the market, chops off the heads of the men, sells the women and children into slavery. So within 5 years of Muhammad coming into the Jewish city of Medina, there's not a Jew left in the city of Medina. They were chased out, killed, or enslaved. And so when Madami said in February of this year, my religion began with Muhammad being an immigrant into Medina. It's like, yeah, and what happened next? There wasn't a Jew left in Medina. They were chased out, killed, or enslaved. And so this practice went into the DNA of Islam, that they come into a host community, taking advantage of the niceness and tolerance of the community, and then they begin to organize a following. And as their following grows, they get an imam, and the imam coaches them to become more fundamental, and they have the young Muslim men do random attacks, knives, acid attacks, rapes, and so forth. And the previous inhabitants of the neighborhood no longer feel safe, and they move out, and they take over the neighborhood. So the pattern for Islam is they come into a host country and eventually drive out the very host people that let them in. So they take over, much like an invasive species. Like in nature, you have domestic species and invasive species, like you have little ants, and then you have fire ants, and you have bees, and you have killer bees, and somebody let pythons loose in the Everglades, and they're growing 20 feet long and eating up all the little ground critters, and there has not been a natural predator to them in this hemisphere. And so Christianity is more of a domestic ideology. Love your enemies, bless them that curse you. And Islam is more of an invasive ideology. You read the story of northern India in the 700s when Caliph Qasim invaded. The Hindu mind could not conceive of an exclusive religion. And so these Hindus, with their, some say 360 million gods, when they see Islam coming in, they're like, oh, another religion? Fine. We have lots of them. Water's warm. Jump in. The Hindu mind could not conceive of an exclusive religion. No. It's just our new Islamic way. It's like, yeah, we've been doing multiple deities for millennia. It's like, yeah, it'll be fine. They're like, no, it's just our Islamic way. And so the woke mindset in Europe and in America cannot conceive of an exclusive belief system. They're like, yeah, no, tolerance is the answer to everything. Just tolerate it. Everything will be fine, just tolerate it. They can't conceive that you could actually tolerate something that's intolerant of you. Their mind can't wrap themselves around that. And so they let in an intolerant belief system that drives them out. And so that is the Islamic mindset. Now, there are moderate Muslims. I want to point that out. And the moderate ones are happy to live with the freedoms of the West. But the fundamental Muslims are just as happy to kill a moderate Muslim as they are to kill an infidel. So people say, why don't the moderate Muslims stand up? Well, they would if the non-Muslims will be the umbrella to protect them. But if they stand up and the West is caving and oftentimes abetting and helping the fundamental Muslims, the moderates are faced with a choice of either leaning toward the fundamental ones or getting killed. I tell people it's like a drug gang is coming into your neighborhood, and you call the police show up and arrest them. Are you going to call the police again? Well, yeah. But if you call the police and they don't show up, worse, the drug dealer comes to your door and says, we have somebody inside the police department and they said you called and snitched. If you do it again, we'll kill you. Are you going to call the police anymore? Probably not. So when the non-Muslim responds to the fundamental one strong, then the moderates are happy to be under the umbrella of the West and enjoy the freedoms and the food and the dining and the fashions and so forth. But if the terrorists do their attack and the non-Muslim world doesn't show itself strong, well, they are put in a position of having to lean toward the fundamentalist ones or get killed themselves. So I wanted to lay out the Islamic strategy of coming into a host community like Muhammad came into Medina. They take advantage of the freedoms and then eventually drive out the previous inhabitants, usually taking advantage of the political differences. So if Muhammad would have come in and said, in 5 years, there won't be a Jew left, those three Jewish clans would have made up with each other, right? But you see, if they come in and they pick on the differences, the Republican-Democrat differences, then one will say, oh, you want to help us? The other will say, oh, you want to help us? And so that's the Islamic strategy. Now let's look at the Democrat strategy. The Democrat strategy has been pretty much since LBJ on, is to have crime go up in the big cities on purpose. On purpose. Have the judges let the criminals out and let more criminals out and let more criminals. Why? Because if crime goes up, pro-family people will leave. And pro-family people are a higher percentage Republican. And if crime goes up, pro-small business people leave. How can you have your small business when there's criminals on the street and the police are ordered to stand down? And then there's policies of higher taxes. And like in Mondami in New York, if you have a government subsidized grocery store and the other grocery stores in New York are living on very small profit margins, and if they lose just a small percentage of their customer base, they're going to go belly up. And then they won't be any private grocery stores. They'll just be the free ones, and the government backdoors the city into socialism. But the strategy of the Democrats is have crime go up and taxes go up so that small business people leave, and small business people are a higher percentage Republican. Who's left in the city? More people on welfare. Well, they're a higher percentage Democrat. And so if crime goes up, the Democrats get a monopoly on city government. And whoever controls the big city controls the state. And whoever wins the state gets all the electoral votes for the state, and the president's elected by electoral votes. So all you got to do is do this in a couple big cities around the country, and you have crime go up, Republicans leave, Democrats get a monopoly on city politics. If they win the city, they win the state, they get all the electoral votes, and they can win the presidency. It's a strategy that overlaps the Islamic strategy. So the Islamic strategy is come in, drive out the previous inhabitants, take over. And the Democrat strategy is come in, have crime go up, drive out the Republicans. Either way, they take over. And if they do that in enough cities, they can win their states and then eventually get enough congressmen and win the presidency. So this is a political strategy that is tried and true. And if there wasn't for the fact that there is a 1,400-year track record of Islam coming into non-Muslim areas and taking over. So all of Syria used to be Christian for 6 centuries, evangelized by Paul. The name Christian was first used in Syria until Caliph Umar came in 648 AD. Jerusalem was a Byzantine Christian city. They had a Byzantine Greek Orthodox patriarch named Sophronius, and he brokered a deal because there was a 7th century war between the Persians, Iran, and the Romans. Even after the Roman Empire became Christian, the Roman-Persian wars kept going on, and so it depleted the military of both, which allowed Islam to take over. So Sophronius, this patriarch of Jerusalem, brokers a deal. Instead of 2 choices, convert or die, you get a 3rd choice. You can be a dhimmi, a second-class citizen that pays taxes to your new Muslim overlord occupiers. And if you run out of money and can't pay the tax, you're no longer part of the agreement, and they can sell you and your wife and daughters into slavery. And so that's why they have no problem coming into a host country like in Minneapolis and living off the tax fraud. Because in their mind, they're supposed to live off of the people that they're subduing.
and we allow it. We welcome it, unfortunately. All right, we've got to go to our next break. Bill Federer is my guest today. It is history. It is history we need to remember so that we understand what we're living in right now and what our future may look like if we can't correct it. Stay tuned. More with the Tamara Scott Show.
Do you like drinking toxins that could cause cancer, inflammation, and all kinds of other autoimmune diseases? Of course you don't. Well, much of our water in America is full of toxins. That's a proven fact. WorldviewWater.net. WorldviewWater.net is your solution so that you can drink good, clean water. In fact, I give it to all my 3 fur babies, all my 3 dogs. I have one under my kitchen sink, one of these filters, as well as on my shower. WorldviewWater.net.
This is our new NutraSwish, Numi NutraSwish. You can find more information at Numi, neumi.com/TTSS. neumi.com/TTSS, one of the products we offer because you all have different preferences and respond differently to different items. So this is our lavender. It's for ladies anywhere along your journey. No hormones in it, but if you're taking a hormonal supplement, you might want to check with your doctor. The blue is for anyone over the age of 18. It has the glutathione, which is a antioxidant, helps with over 400 cellular functions, and it helps detox heavy metals, forever chemicals, graphene oxide, one of those terms we learned after 2020, and it helps detox glyphosate. The good glutathione helps detox glyphosate. Glyphosate is found in ag chemicals or lawn chemicals, and some are very concerned about possible links to cancers, HPVs, and diabetes. But the blue bottle, the glutathione, helps detox heavy metals, forever chemicals, graphene oxide, and glyphosate. Then there's the mango-colored bottle you see on your screen. Numi Neuro helps with your mind, your memory, and your focus. Now, again, after 2020, we heard something about brain fog, a term we'd not heard before. Whether it's from a virus or a vaccine, many have found relief, a little help, with Numi Neuro, the mango-colored bottle. When used with the blue bottle, it is so positive that the American Brain Council wrote about it, and it looked like an endorsement. Though we're told they don't write endorsements, it was simply a positive review of what they saw. You can find more information at Numi, neumi.com/TTSS, neumi.com/TTSS for the Tamara Scott Show. Why? Because we want you feeling your best. And when you use that TTSS link, you help us be our best.
All right, Bill Federer is my guest. Great recall of history for us on what we're looking at. Coming in, conquering, taking over, and Bill says 1400-year history. Thomas, I sent you the link to the commercial. Can you play that commercial starting at 3:43?
Father knows when the hour is.
So,
What's your point?
well, if Jesus is God,
He should know when the hour is.
but he doesn't.
Because he's a servant of God. Dad, you told me Jesus is God.
I think that too.
Jesus is supposed to know everything,
I know,
though.
but that's what it said in the Bible.
Here's the Quran. Learn the real message of Jesus.
Hey, is your neck okay?
You need a chiropractor?
Our neck is okay.
We're just praying.
Oh.
Like Muhammad. Peace be upon him.
Well, no.
We're actually praying just like Jesus. That doesn't make any sense. It definitely does.
In Matthew 26,
Jesus prayed by bowing his head down to the ground. Oh my God! It's true!
where?
It's over there in the Bible!
Oh my God, what they're saying is true.
So Jesus prayed.
Just like a Muslim. Wait a second.
Why did Jesus pray like a Muslim?
Answer that one.
Because
He was one.
Meanwhile, Islam's own
All right, let's stop right there. Bill, I don't know if you've seen those. One, they use the Lord's name in vain, which is hard for me. But two, very clever, very crafty. They're no longer trying to spread Islam by showing men in orange jumpsuits who are going to be beheaded on a beach. This is much more enticing. The music is catchy, and they're using children in a very fun, happy way to tell us that Jesus was indeed a Muslim, and here we need the Quran to understand who he really was.
Yeah, so Jesus taught God was our Father. In Islam, it's blasphemy to call Allah your Father. Jesus taught we're children of God. In Islam, it's blasphemy to call yourself a child of Allah, because Allah took no wife and has no son. Jesus taught we're made in the image of God. In Islam, Allah has no image. Jesus taught to love your enemies. Muhammad taught to subdue your enemies. Jesus never married. Muhammad had anywhere from 11 to 22 wives. His youngest was 9-year-old Aisha. Matter of fact, those little girls in that cute little clip you showed would be old enough to be Muhammad's wife. And so Jesus never tortured anybody. When Muhammad conquered Khaybar, the chief wouldn't tell where the treasure was hidden, so Muhammad had the chief stretched out on the ground, and they kindled a fire on his chest. Jesus taught not to lie. He said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. He says, Satan's the father of liars. Muhammad taught taqiyya, that you can lie if you feel threatened. You can lie if it can help advance Islam. There was a chieftain planning on attacking Muhammad, and Muhammad goes to his warriors and said, who will rid me of this chieftain? And his one warrior said, I will if you permit me to lie. Muhammad said, go. So the warrior goes to the chieftain and says, I left Muhammad and I want to help you, but they're after me. And the chieftain says, tell you what, you can spend the night in my tent. You'll be safe. The whole army will surround you. Well, in the middle of the night, he tiptoes over and beheads the chieftain and grabs the head, runs all the way and gives it to Muhammad and says, O prophet, Allah's face is shown upon you. And Muhammad said, Allah's face is shown upon you. And Muhammad gives him his staff and says that you can lean on this in the day of judgment, because on that day, many people won't have anything to lean upon. Muhammad did not know what was going to happen to him. He said, though I'm the prophet of Allah, I do not know what Allah will do with me. Jesus is the Son of God. Jesus is not just a prophet. He is the Son of God. He is the Word of God, and he was there in creation. God created everything by speaking the Word. And it says, let there be light. And God said, let the earth bring forth. And God said, let the waters from above be separated from the waters from beneath. And God said, everything God created, he created with his word, and Jesus is the word made flesh and dwelt among us. Jesus is eternal. And even in the Quran, they admit that Jesus performed miracles, and they will admit that Muhammad performed 0 miracles. In the Quran, they say that Jesus will come back and sit at the day of judgment. No, Muhammad's not going to sit in the day of judgment. And so when you, matter of fact, there were prophecies acknowledged that Jesus fulfilled. There was no prophecies that Muhammad fulfilled. And Jesus is the Quran says that Jesus was born of a virgin. It said, what Allah willeth, he willeth, and Mary conceived. And so the Quran acknowledges that Jesus did not have an earthly father. So if Jesus did not have an earthly father, who was his father? Well, must have been God. No, Allah took no son. Well, if Jesus did not have an earthly father, then who's his father? It must be God. No, Allah took no son. There is a total mental disconnect in Islam, right? So if they acknowledge that Jesus did not have an earthly father, then God was his father. And so Jesus is the Son of God. Islam has an unforgivable sin called shirk, and I already mentioned this, that if you believe that Jesus is the Son of God, you go to hell. Jesus himself said that he was the Son of God. The scriptures say that when he was baptized, that the heavens, that the angel, the dove came down from heaven, And the voice of the Father said, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I'm well pleased." And John the Baptist pointed to Jesus, "Behold, the Lamb of God that taketh away the sins of the world." And so, but in the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem, that says there's one God's name's Allah, and Allah took no son, specifically denies the deity of Christ. And so Jesus told Philip, "If you've seen me, you've seen the Father. I and my Father are one." And in another place, he said, "I am," and he uses that Hebrew term referring to Yahweh, his Father. So this is Islam is the religion of Cain. You have Cain and Abel, and Cain worshiped God through his works. We know it's works because God told Adam, "The ground is cursed for your sake, and you'll bring forth fruit by the sweat of your brow." Sweat is work. So Cain's trying to work his way to heaven. Now, if you do works, you can be proud of your works because you're doing more than your brother. And pride is the sin of Satan. Now, they call it honor, but it's pride. And so God resists the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. Abel trusted in the lamb, and it's this picture. God is on one side, and he is just. We are on the other side, and we have sinned. And in between is the lamb, and the lamb takes the judgment for the sin instead of us taking the judgment for the sin. The lamb is the substitute. There is no lamb in Cain's theology. It is just works. And when his works were rejected, his countenance fell. His pride was hurt. He was embarrassed. He was shamed in front of his community, his ummah, which was small. It was the mom, dad, and brother, but that was enough. And that's when Cain decided to do the first honor killing. He killed his brother Abel, who was responsible for embarrassing him in front of his community. And so Islam is the religion of Cain. And so it's almost like the spiritual descendants of Cain always want to kill the spiritual descendants of Abel. Well, any religion that's a religion of works is the religion of Cain, but definitely Islam is. And so who was saved in the Old Testament? Well, those who believed in the Lamb. In the Deuteronomy, and you have the law and the Lamb. You have the all the different 613 laws, and then you have the sacrifices for when you break the law. And so in the Old Testament, they believed in the Lamb to come. They didn't know his name, but somehow or another, they knew that God's on one side, I'm on the other side, I'm a sinner, but somehow this Lamb giving its life is going to restore my relationship with God. So they had faith in the Lamb to come. We have faith in the Lamb that came, but salvation is through the Lamb. But there's no Lamb in Cain's theology. So again, it's the spiritual descendants of Cain wanting to kill the spiritual descendants of Abel, and that's why Islam hates Jews and Christians.
I'd not heard it quite like that. We always hear people ask, is it Ishmael? Is it, so that's very interesting. Thank you very much. And you're not saying it's genetics or genealogy. You're saying it's spiritual, and that does make sense. Got to go to our last break. We'll be right back. Bill Federer is my guest. AmericanMinute.com.
Three years ago, the United States was stunned by an announcement from war-torn Korea. U.S. Army Private David Hawkins and 20 other prisoners of the communists had become turncoats. They had renounced their own country and disappeared behind Red China's bamboo curtain.
What had you heard? Well, only what our Chinese captors had told us, how great they were working toward socialism, the great strides that they were taking, bettering the life of the Chinese people who for so many thousands of years had lived a life of oppression under various governments.
And one of those products we offer you is Frequence.com. You can go to Frequence.com/Tamara Scott, This is the trace minerals, because some of the produce, even if you're trying to grow it yourself, may not have those minerals that we need because the ground may no longer have those minerals. You can find out more about it at frequents.com/Tamara Scott. You see on the screen a little bit more about the Rise and Vibe. There are other products there. We offer a host of different groups, different products, different items, because you have different preferences and your bodies respond differently. You have different needs. But when you use the Tamara Scott Show link at those websites, then you help us be our best. We thank you for that, whether it's Grace, NutraSwish, or the frequency.com. Bill Federer is my guest today. We're talking about Islam, and it's very timely because even though he's giving you history, it gives you a glimpse into the future if you don't correct it right now in America. Thomas, I had sent a link of Mondami in New York talking about rapes and that whether or not rapes were increasing. Do you have that link, and can you play it?
And what I think is important to know is a lot of the increase in rape also comes from an expanded definition of what counts as rape, as well as survivors coming forward for acts that took place years prior.
All right, so let's stop right there. Bill, you're seeing that just this portion. We don't know the other part of the comments around it. But my first thought was the increase in rapes is probably the increase in rapes. And it may very well be the increase of a group of people coming into that city feeling empowered by someone in office who doesn't think raping women is an issue. Am I off base?
Yeah, you only have to look at the whole rest of the world to see that when Islam comes in, Muslim men rape, and not just women, but boys. They have grooming gangs in England, and 250,000 over the last 10 years have been raped and groomed. But this happens throughout the world. I was talking with a pastor, Greg Young, out of Texas, and he works with groups in the Middle East, and he said how when Muslim areas, that Christians cannot hold jobs higher than Muslims. So most of the Christian women get jobs as house, workers, and the Muslim men in the house will rape them, and they can't do anything about it, because a non-Muslim's testimony is inadmissible in a court over in these Muslim countries. It's impossible for a non-Muslim to testify against a Muslim. So they can rape the women and there's no testimony. And then even in Islamic law, there needs to be 4 men who witness the rape or it never happened. This goes back to Muhammad himself. So Aisha, the 9-year-old that he married, they were on a caravan going through the desert, and they stopped, and she got off to relieve herself over a sand dune, and when she came back, the caravan was gone, and a straggler on a donkey sees her, picks her up, and takes her to Muhammad, and the Muslim men said, "You have to kill the guy, because he must have raped her." And the little girl said, "He didn't rape me." And so Muhammad said, there's to be 4 witnesses of a rape. And so that went into Islamic law. So today, if a woman is raped, if there were not 4 male Muslim witnesses, then it never happened, right? And they have to be Muslim witnesses, again, because a kafir non-Muslim's testimony is not admissible in a court against a Muslim. And then finally, if you can prove the woman was raped, it's the woman that gets whipped 100 times for allowing herself to be used as a tool of Satan to tempt a man. So if she gets raped, it's her fault anyway. The Supreme Court Justice Robert Jackson said, "The law of the Middle East is the antithesis of Western law. It is the complete opposite. We punish the perpetrators, and in Islam, they punish the victim." And so...
and in one of those foreign countries, and I don't remember which one, this has been in the last year or two, there was a rape. They did decide that there was a rape. And so to make it right, the rapist's sister was going to have to be raped. That was somehow how they justified the first rape. It's very gang-like.
It's very gang-like. So imagine if the MS-13 gang simply started calling itself a religion. They just now, all of a sudden, they did a press release and they said the MS-13 is now a religion. They're like, oh, you're a religion? Well, I guess we can let you take over neighborhoods and you can practice your MS-13 religion in your neighborhood. And you can sex traffic girls and you can kill people that want to leave the gang, right? Blood in, blood out, the Islamic Ridda laws. If you want to leave, you get killed. And you can wear your specific dress instead of turbans and burqas. It can be baggy pants and bandanas and tattoos and matter of fact, we can even teach MS-13 in schools now. We can let you have your own little rooms and your times of the day, and you can do your MS-13. I mean, that's basically in the area where Muhammad lived in Arabia. They had gangs or tribes or clans. And they had rules of how these clans work. And Muhammad simply added booty in the next life. He added a spiritual dimension to this political structure that was very gang-like. And so it's a unique combination of human motivations, lust and religious fervor. Who would have thought that you could have combined those two?
So the heart is deceitful, right? Human nature. So this is why we are pleased to see the Sharia caucus in the House, U.S. House. There's not one in the Senate. I don't understand why. But we're asking many state legislators to consider legislation that would say no governing body, whether it's city council, county, state, federal, and no affiliated organization, institution, building, parks, public lands, U.S. courts, or anyone or any organization affiliated or funded by taxpayer dollars would not in any way integrate, recognize, or accommodate foreign law that is incompatible with constitutional law, including Sharia law. We're asking. Go ahead.
That's what the whole 14th Amendment was about. So the southern states that were Democrat wanted to continue to have racist laws. I know the Democrat states in the South had racist laws, making it a crime for a black person to own a weapon. Some states, it was a crime to teach blacks to read. And so they would have their vigilante groups. And so the 14th Amendment was passed to force the southern states to grant rights to the freed slaves. But it was a situation where the states were saying, no, we want to have all our alternative laws. We're going to find a way. We won't call it slavery. We'll say that the freed slave has to work for their employer and be apprenticed to their employer, and they can't leave employment without their employer's permission. It's like, okay, you can't leave without permission. That sounds like slavery. So they were reinstituting slavery, just giving it different names. But they wanted to have laws that discriminated, and the 14th Amendment says, no, we're going to have the federal government force the states to abide by the rights guaranteed in the Bill of Rights. And so you can't have Sharia law and say, we're going to treat women differently. We're going to have polygamy. We're going to have 9-year-old wives. We're going to say that a woman cannot leave the house without her husband's permission, without being accompanied by a male relative, without having her hair covered. I was in Philadelphia recently, and they said there's Christian girls in the inner city that are wearing burqas on their way to school so they don't get harassed by the Muslim boys. If they go to school dressed in their normal clothes, they get harassed by the Muslim boys, and they call them sluts and all kinds of names. But if they wear the burqas, the Muslim boys leave them alone.
The only worse thing than being conquered is surrendering without a fight. That's what I'm hearing from you. We are out of time, Bill. We just got to the 4th Amendment, and I would love to ask you about birthright. So out of time. I hope you'll come back. I know you're always good to join us whenever you can. To everybody out there, we tell you to live boldly, love better, laugh better, be encouraged, and never be complacent.
You're watching